Sangye Chodong, Soje Chonam Loy, Changcho Pardo Dane Kyaswech, Dage Chuje Gibe Sunam Che, Dola Benjara Sangye Do Barai Sho, Sangye Chodong, Soje Chonam Loy, Changcho Pardo Dane Kyaswech, Dage Chuje Gibe Sunam Che, Dola Benjara Sangye Do Barai Sho. Sangye Chodang Soje Chonam Lai Changcho Parto Dane Kyasui Dage Chushe Gebe Sunam Che Dola Penjera Sangye Do Barai Sho Sangye Chodang Soje Chonam Lai Changcho Parto Dane Kyasui Dage Chushe Gebe Sunam Che Dola Penjera Sangye Do Bare Sho Simje Damje Dewa Dan Deve Gyudan Dimbraj Dunga Dan Dunga Ge Jodan Tawara Joje Dungala Mebe Dewa Tamba Dan Mindal Warj Niring Chaudan Yedan Tawe Tanyam Chembo La Nebra Churaj Simje Tamche Dewa Dan Deve Gyudan Dimbraj Churje Dungal Dan Dungal Ke Jodan Jawa Juje Dungala Mebe Dewa Tamba Tang Mindal Wara Churche Nyereng Chaudan Nidang Tangyom Chemba La Nebra Churche Semchen Tamche Dewa Tang Dewe Gyudang Dembrach Dungal Dang Dunge Ge Jodan Tawara Churche Dungala Mebe Dewa Tamba Tang Mindal Wara Nyereng Chaudan Nidang Tangyom Chemba La Nebra Churche Palden Tsawe Lama Rinpoche Dage Kiwo Pede Denjo Te Kaden Chimbo Gone Jesong Kusong Toge Ngodo Tsato So Balden Dorje Changwa Rikin Chabda Lama Karmapa Chimgo Kunje June Sije Panjur Yedam Dorje Nanjurama Tinle Kunje Chepon Chujong Perche Chamdala Nanjuro Keba Zijen De Don Dalme Toge Chongwara Kangchir Tsenye Gyalwe Le Topinzo De Sabe Tane Pella Chunda Yuring Longcho Ne La Mimpa Ton De Jirova Teacher Dage Tongma Nyingje Te Pareje Tangbo Nga Che Dala Shinjur Che Dage Ndishe Ngulach Se Che Chanda Rama Meba Ye Dola Nyingje Churkan Te La Ende Kangla Semje Tamba Rinche Te Chepa Ti Kula Changza Kangla Nepa Chejang Dendelwe Dewen June Te La Chav Sui Chi. Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good night's sleep. Yes, so in the morning we are going to learn about the bodhicitta. The teaching on the bodhicitta is based on 7 points of mind training. I'm very sure that many of you know this and you have heard it many times. And I'm very happy, that I have this opportunity to to discuss, the bodhicitta. Okay. About bodhicitta. So, yes, I would like to say a few things in general about bodhicitta and the importance of the bodhicitta on the path to enlightenment, as much as I can remember, whatever vague memory I may have, from these teachings. As we all know that the one book that is really the most important book, practice, I should say, is the Bodhicharya Avatara, Shantideva's book, Bodhicharya Avatara. So I really advise that you learn it practice it, it's a book that we really want. So therefore, I'm also going to, quote few things from the Bodhicharya Avatara. In Bodhicharya Avatara, the whole book is about bodhicitta. So therefore, every single verse in that is equally precious, equally profound. So in the very first chapter, as you know, the first chapter of the Bodhicharya Avatara, Bodhisattva's way of life, Shantideva briefly tells us the benefit of bodhicitta. So you should read that. From my memory, it's very vague. What I remember is that he says Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for very, very long time, meaning aeons and aeons, thought about what is it that can really bring limitless benefit to sentient beings. What is it that is the source of all the benefits in this world? After meditating, after thinking on that for like aeons and aeons, then they realize that there's only one thing actually, and that one thing is bodhicitta, so to speak. Therefore, he's in this very book, he also says that, for example, there are lines like, simply put, if you want to be happy, the source for that happiness is bodhicitta. And if you want others to be happy, also the source for that is the bodhicitta. In his book, in the Bodhicharya Avatara, in the first chapter, he says that those who wish to remove your own pain, suffering, the only way to do that is bodhicitta. And then, of course, those who also wish to or desire to help others to overcome their pain, suffering, also depends, or source for that is the bodhicitta. So when we say bodhicitta, it's both the relative and the ultimate bodhicitta here. At the same time, for example, in our world, let's say in the world of the sentient beings, we may not call it bodhicitta, but kindness, for example, and compassion. There is no really, argument that these two, kindness and compassion, are not the source of happiness or benefit. They are 100%, the source of all the benefits for oneself and for others. So, as for the bodhicitta, then this bodhicitta is, the maturation of this kindness, compassion. When they mature in their full form, when our own kindness, when our own compassion, when they become, selfless, I would like to think, or when they become unbiased, correct? Or then this is when, we are able to include in our compassion, in our kinds, everyone. We don't exclude anyone at all. As of now, that may be not the case. When you really think of that, in your kindness, how many people you are really thinking about, it's very limited. You're thinking a handful of people. So my kindness is reaching only to a handful of people. So that means I may have kindness, I may have compassion, but somehow, I am limiting that, to a handful of people. And that limitation is because of attachment, loved ones, friends, you have attachment. So, yes, so therefore, when this very same kindness, this very same compassion, with this very same compassion, when we are able to include everybody without exception, that is a sign that now you really have broke all the boundaries whatsoever of, friends and enemies. And this is why then your own compassion, your own kindness now, is unbiased, is we could say universal, whatever that means, we could say universal in the sense like we do not, exclude anyone, right, from our compassion, from our kindness. So anyway, so this is, let's say, the way how bodhicitta, the relative bodhicitta, manifests in us. Of course, I will explain more, when we come to the book. Also, for example, when we what really, makes one a Mahayana practitioner, for example, like we say I'm Mahayana practitioner or I'm a Vajrayana practitioner. What exactly makes you a Vajrayana practitioner or Mahayana practitioner is not because you follow, a school. You follow a particular, let's say, Kagyu school or Gelu or Nyingma Sakya. That does not make you Mahayana or Hinayana or anything, actually, at all. What really makes you Mahayana is actually, the view. Along with the view, then the mind, we call it. That mind is bodhicitta, actually. The moment when we truly understand the value of the bodhicitta, and the moment when we generate that bodhicitta, or we could say when we receive that bodhisattva vow, and the moment we generate this bodhicitta, that moment is the moment when you truly become Mahayana or a bodhisattva. Like actually Shantideva says in his book too, right, in the first chapter, that he says that as soon as you receive the bodhisattva vow, in that very moment, the whole universe praise you and call you the bodhisattva. It says the gods, the asuras, the demigod, the humans, all together, they, sing and praise, saying, now you have become a bodhisattva. Not that you have become bodhisattva in the sense that you have become a realized individual, but because you have cultivated the mind. Just because you have cultivated the mind of the relative bodhicitta, and when you, and that is then when you become the family of the bodhisattva family, right? You then belong to the bodhisattva family in that very moment. Then yes, one truly really become, let's say, Mahayana. One don't have to have an ego thinking that I'm Mahayana. Of course, one should not have any ego thinking that, I'm somebody who is practicing bodhicitta. Of course, that is against the path. This whole thing is against the path, the ego, the pride. That is against the Dharma, actually. So anyway, so so yes, Shantideva says that, and it is true that that the moment when we start thinking about the value, the priceless value of the bodhicitta, and when we start appreciating that, when we start really thinking about it very deeply, from that moment onward, I would like to believe that is the time when really the relative bodhicitta is now, taking place in our heart, in our minds. And that is very important. And then in a very true sense, whether you claim or whether you don't claim, you very naturally will become somebody with bodhicitta, correct? So then you are a bodhisattva from that point of view, from this direction. It's not only because you have, what that meant is that the time, the day when you experience this bodhicitta is the time, a day, when one seriously considers helping other sentient beings with their pain, with their suffering. And one's own well-being, one's own happiness takes a backseat, because of that. So this is why, that mind of the bodhicitta mind becomes so very important, actually. And now we could see that how this bodhicitta really becomes the source of enlightenment. Without the bodhicitta, there is no enlightenment at all in terms of Buddhahood. It's actually impossible to achieve Buddhahood. This is why when we differentiate between bodhisattvas and arhats, of course arhats are, noble beings, but yet in the teaching there are these terms. There are two things, two extremes we call it, falling into the extremes of samsara. That's us, we have fallen into the extremes of samsara. And then as for the arhats, they have fallen into the extremes of the nirvana, we call it, correct, nirvana. Why? There is this line, verse in Uttra Tantra Shastra, Buddha Nature Mind. The line actually goes like this. Because of the craving, they fall into the extremes of nirvana. Here the craving is a little bit different. Here the craving is craving for the liberation and craving for one's own liberation. Meaning like they, arhats, they understand that, they understand suffering, and they also understand where this suffering is coming from, the truth of origination. So they go to the root. They go to the root of the suffering, and the root of suffering, truth of origination, which is karma, klesha, and ego clinging. And therefore, they absolutely manage or succeed in uprooting the ego, and then of course along with the ego, all the kleshas and karma. So the noble beings no longer are controlled by emotions or ego or karma at all. They are beyond karma, beyond emotions, and beyond samsaric pain. So that's why they don't suffer in samsara, simply because of that. And this actually is because of the ultimate bodhicitta, the wisdom, the wisdom, correct? So from that point, from the viewpoint of view, the arhats and bodhisattva, they all, have gained the view, which is the view of the emptiness, the realization of the emptiness, and that is the reason why, they succeeded in uprooting the ego, from the root and the emotion along with that, and they gain liberation from the suffering and the cause of suffering. But at the same time, then let's say arhats, they, because of their craving to the nirvana, let's put it simply put, and therefore they have fallen into the extremes of the nirvana, so to speak. And bodhisattvas, on the other hand, have not fallen into that. Why? Because they don't crave for nirvana or for self-liberation. And like again in this Uttara Tantra Shastra, he says that actually bodhisattvas do not fall into the extremes of samsara and nirvana because they are beyond craving and because of the wisdom, actually, so to speak. So anyway, I'm just giving you an example here to say that the reason that the arhats, all the noble beings, are not yet considered a bodhisattva is not because they're lacking ultimate bodhicitta, but they're actually lacking relative bodhicitta. So it was really about the relative bodhicitta, so to speak. Okay, that is something that is in the book, but in our everyday life, it's very relevant actually. Okay, bodhicitta word maybe is very dharmic probably, but let's say compassion and kindness is very relevant in our life, correct? Not only relevant, but really compassion, kindness is the source of all the goodness in the universe, for example. So from this we can understand what are they exactly talking about. Imagine in this world there are no compassion and kindness, what this world will be, for example. We cannot even imagine how horrible this will be. Generally speaking, in our world, why you think that there's so much violence, It's not because of the compassion or kindness, correct? But because of emotion, human emotions. That's why we call them negative. But at the same time, we have not yet completely lost it in terms of goodness. There's still kindness, there's still, compassion. Because of this world is still, livable, I would like to think. Otherwise, this world will be not livable at all. So the world is yet a fairly good place, thanks to kindness, thanks to compassion, thanks to that, correct? It's just from very worldly point of view, even so to speak. So yes, so therefore the importance of really remembering, not for other people only, for ourselves too, actually, really. So therefore, it's really important for us to try to really remember that, try to remember what does kindness mean, what does this, compassion mean. And in Dharma language, we have bodhicitta. What does this bodhicitta really mean, And how this bodhicitta is really the source of, goodness, both in samsara and beyond samsara. So, right. So therefore, like I was early on when I said we should, learn the bodhicharya avatar is because of that. Sometimes there are like this, when it comes to bodhicitta, then this bodhicitta, really the quality of the bodhicitta, the benefit of bodhicitta is something, it's limitless. It's limitless and it's timeless. So we cannot exactly sort of sum it up in few words. It's very hard for anyone to say actually, or to sort of conclude saying, okay, that's really it. Sometimes in the book you will come across saying that there are 5 benefits or 6 benefits. Like when you read about compassion, it says, oh, there are like 5 benefits. It's not that way actually. It's not like limited to 5 or 6 or 10 actually. Happiness, joy, all that. Really, the source of that really is actually bodhicitta, very much the bodhicitta. And this bodhicitta, of course, we will discuss more. It's not just a bodhicitta, but a bodhicitta supported by a very profound wisdom, actually. That's why this become very profound. Not because it's only bodhicitta, but because this bodhicitta is backed up or supported, or it includes this very, very profound wisdom. And that's why then this insight, really, when we experience this compassion, kindness with that insight, then it does not remain only a compassion or kindness, but it becomes this insight itself. Insight and the compassion, when they blend, so to speak, so we could say union or something like that. There's no union as such, but it is true. What I'm saying is that imagine the realization of emptiness. But this realization of emptiness is not just an emptiness. This realization, which is emptiness, is also really, bodhicitta, is supported by bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is really supported by that wisdom. So they are not like two separate mind or two separate experience. It's just one state of a mind. But the state of the mind is really, has these characteristics of the, bodhicitta. So yeah, like many a times we are, we wonder what is really the best thing in Dharma that can help us to, help us with our emotions. The answer is very simple. The answer is really the bodhicitta actually. There is nothing that bodhicitta cannot help us with. So therefore, like again Shantideva says in the first chapter, he says that bodhicitta, he is referring to relative bodhicitta, is the most powerful antidote to overcome all the karmic obscurations. He gives this example of, fire at the end of the world, so to speak. It is believed or is said in this thing that fire at the end of the world even burns the ashes, so even the ashes will not be there from the cosmology point of view. At the same time, when one truly we generate bodhicitta, and when we truly experience bodhicitta, this bodhicitta then has this ability to absolutely remove or uproot that mental obscuration of the emotions, so to speak. Whether it is karma, whether it's pain, whether anything really, there's one solution we can see is just one really practice, and that practice is none other than the bodhicitta, right? The practice of the bodhicitta. Without that, then Dharma practice does not become very precious, I'm thinking, I don't know if you can even call it a Dharma practice if we, practice Dharma without involvement of the bodhicitta at all. Really, if I practice bodhicitta, if I practice Dharma with mundane thought, with mundane view, it becomes mundane. I'm not saying there's no benefit, there may be benefit, but it's not so special at all, So, but as soon as we are able to include this bodhicitta, this my very mundane, experience, this very mundane practice transforms. in that very moment. Let's say I start out with this very mundane thought, but while in my meditation, in the middle of my meditation or practice, somehow bodhicitta clicks in me. It doesn't take very long to click bodhicitta. It can click very easily, actually. Let's say you are reading a part and then bodhicitta clicks to you. The moment when bodhicitta clicks in you, and it enters your heart, your mind, everything that you have been practicing so far become the nature of that very bodhicitta, right? Just like anger, actually. If you experience anger, everything becomes the nature of the anger. So we don't want that. We don't want that. We want the bodhicitta. Everything that we practice on the surface of the bodhicitta, it becomes quality of the enlightenment. Source of the enlightenment for oneself, for others, especially for others, actually. So this is why, all the great masters, all the teachers always, emphasize on cultivating of the bodhicitta. That's why, actually. So that's why this training, actually, the 7 points of mind training, became very, let's say, well known, is because it is, one of the most profound way of generating the bodhicitta, actually. I will explain later on. It is really due to that, actually, so to speak. So yes, what I'm trying to say is that of course, you can read this book, study this book, but along with this book, if you read like Bodhicharya Avatara, that will become a very big support to really go more deep into what this is all about. In here we have 7 points, and of course all of that. But when you read the Bodhicharya Avatara, then the Bodhicharya Avatara from head to toe, we can say, from start to finish, it's all about bodhicitta, so much elaborated. Then after, when you read again the 7 points of mind training, then your understanding, your experience, your vision, I would say, of this bodhicitta altogether will become very different, because the way you see it, way you experience it, then becomes really, boundless, actually. Here probably not, if you don't, read Bodhicharya Avatar, not, because it's, you get what this book says, probably, right? But this book or this teaching is only, it's only a way of, saying that bodhicitta, there is bodhicitta, and this bodhicitta is, is the source of all benefit. But when you study and practice, I like to think, the Bodhicharya Avatara, then you understand why he was saying, what they were saying in this book. Yes, really, the Bodhicharya Avatara is so very relevant in all the times, and the heart of the Mahayana teaching, I would like to think, or Dharma teaching, as a Buddhist, correct? Then Bodhicharya Avatara is really the heart of that. We claim ourselves as Mahayana or Vajrayana. We receive many Vajrayana teachings, empowerments, all these higher teachings. But probably we forget the bodhicitta. And if we are not at all able to include or understand bodhicitta, then everything that you said is just sound. There is no benefit in that at all. Whether you talk about Mahamudra or Vajra, all these things, You simply have no ground for anything actually to grow. So the benefit is very minimum. There may be some blessings here and there, that's about it. Enlightenment, forget about it. How can you have an enlightenment without the heart? This is what we forget actually. So we need to understand that the ground for all the qualities, realization that we gain, along the path is the bodhicitta. Without the bodhicitta, then those fruit, those qualities, realization will not take place. So I'm saying that really very important we always must come back, or we always must, over and over again, come back to bodhicitta. This is the way to grow it, actually. You may be doing yidam practice, guru yoga, all that. But the heart of that practice of the yidam and guru yoga is the bodhicitta itself. Even when I'm doing guru yoga, really it's actually a way of improving my own bodhicitta. Or yidam is a way of improving my own bodhicitta, correct? Both the relative and ultimate bodhicitta. So these are things that we want to remember. Sometimes we kind of get lost, I think, along the path. We crave for these other things, and then we somehow ignore the most important essence of the path. And then we sort of run after these other things, forgetting that the essence of that actually is the one that you have forgotten. So we really don't want to do that, actually. If there is no root and heart, then, it's not of a very, benefit kind, correct, so to say. I'm saying this probably to myself, actually, but I'm sharing this, also with you guys. Because I understand that, not that I'm a great practitioner or anything, I'm just a very simple practitioner like any one of you. But I know this. I myself really many a times sort of got straight or kind of distracted to another, let's say, path and things like this. It could happen many a times, not just us, but also even to the Mahasiddhas. If you read the life story of the many Mahasiddhas, they would say that. Of course, I'm not comparing us to them. They do. Many a times, sometimes they fall into the extremes of the emptiness, actually a lot. And then to the point they probably may lose the ground of the bodhicitta. They will not from the root, but somehow this. So then they understand that. They gain this realization that, the reason I'm having this kind of thing is because, I'm losing the ground. So it could happen in many, many ways, if you do yidam practice, guru yoga practice, or any other practice. We can feel that one feel of empty. If you're feeling empty, then bodhicitta 100% is missing, actually. It's not like emptiness. There can be many other, I guess, different kinds of, experience you may go. One of them is that sort of empty in the sense like you may have the view somehow, but then you are lacking the mind, so to speak, bodhicitta. Therefore, somehow it's you feel like groundless. And that actually is true. It is groundless, so to speak. I hope I'm understandable, but this is what in many of the teachings of the Mahasiddhas, they say that. Sometimes it's due to lack, like for example, when they lack renunciation also, I'll come back to that. Sometimes bodhicitta and in the life stories of some Mahasiddhas, some others, it's vague in my mind, but it says that they get carried away by some realization, higher realization. And then they lose this ground, of the renunciation and the bodhicitta, for example, which means then they actually fall into an extreme of some kind of craving or some kind of attachment, which is, not very good. So, and then they need this support, either of the Ngenjung, which means renunciation, or bodhicitta. They take help of that all the time, from what I understood. Bodhisattvas, on higher bodhisattva bhumi, we may wonder that they don't need this. It's not true. It's from their life story we understand that, So anyway, this is why, like Chandrakirti says that, bodhicitta is needed in the very beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So without that ground of the bodhicitta, then the path to enlightenment is lacking, actually, like he says. So it's true. So anyway, these are few things that we want to remember. As a practitioner, it's very important from time to time to meditate on these things, like what I am lacking. Okay, so you are doing your practice of any practice you may be doing, but then you want to think, what exactly I am lacking in my meditation? And these are very good things to do. We want to do that because there is no doubt that we are lacking something. Sometimes the meditation, itself, sometimes bodhicitta, sometimes renunciation, so you never know what's lacking. That's why in our practice, if I want to improve it, I want to improve that, bring growth to to your practice. We always want to, observe your own practice, your own meditation, okay? Your own meditation, your own mind. While in meditation, you really want to observe, analyze your own mind. Mind here is your own experience in your meditation. So then you will see what's lacking. In your meditation, probably something's lacking. In your thoughts, motivation point of view, probably something's lacking. Then we, find it out, and then we, of course, focus on that. We focus whatever is lacking, and we focus more and more, and then this way, then the growth will come about. So these are the ways to, let's just generate the bodhicitta, or dharma in general, actually. Right, so as for the mind training, let's say this 7 points of mind training, most of us, we know that, this actually came from Atisha. I guess almost everybody knows that. In general, before I go into that, Lojong, which is the mind training, there are many kinds of Lojong books, okay? Not just 7 points of mind training. In every lineage, there are Lojong books. So in 108 Lojong classic teachings, there is a book actually in Tibetan and English, both 108. It's a collection of Lojong teachings. Just giving some information. Probably you will not be able to read all 108, but there are. Some are very short. Most of them are very short, so to speak. The one that is, I think, 7 points of mind training among them is the one that is the major one actually. And of course, it is one that is the most practiced in Tibet and now everywhere in the world. But there are actually many other mind training teachings. Mind lo gyong, that mind is actually bodhicitta. Training in bodhicitta is what it meant. Then sometimes it also could mean mind training as in training or applying antidote for different types of negative emotion. That is also another aspect of that. But mostly in this case, 7 points of mind training, then this is all about actually bodhicitta, training in bodhicitta, so to say. So again, I early on said that the teaching on Lojong came from Atisha. Actually, that's not exactly true. For example, Bodhicharya Avatara, so Shantideva, this actually is one of the source of the mind training, right? And before that, every teaching of the Buddha actually is, mind training, because the Dharma practice is all about training our mind. Other than that, there is nothing else actually, so to speak. So therefore, from this point of view, every single teaching, so to speak, all the Tripitakas, so to speak, all are nature of mind training teachings. Some are very high, like all the teachings of the Abhidharma teachings, the Madhyamika teachings. They are all teachings, but they are also 100% mind training teachings. So probably there is no word or a sentence where you could say, oh, this is not a mind training teaching actually. So from this, like Buddha actually says, right, he says that Buddha Dharma is all about taming our mind. So every teaching that Buddha gave are different methods to help us to tame our mind. Sem Dulwa is a Tibetan word I'm saying. Sem and Dulwa, we call it. Sem is mind, and Dulwa meaning tame or train or anything. Tame, probably, straightforwardly tame that. How do you do that? So that taming here, actually, the antidote is wisdom. We need wisdom. We need knowledge. With this wisdom, then, we are able to really understand our own mind, our own thoughts, and mistakes that we make, confusions we have. So it's actually about that, correct? Again, I'm saying something general. Why do you think that we have emotions? Where does this emotion come from? These are the questions. So now we sit down, we think, and then it will click to you. It's because of such and such reason. There is a cause, there are conditions. We understand what are the cause, what are the conditions. In this way, you find a way to, stop the cause, stop the conditions. But we need that wisdom. So the teachings that Buddha gave are all really, wisdom. A wisdom that can help us to understand the reality of our mind, thoughts, and emotion in a very deep way, in a very deep manner, right? So, yes, so in this way, then you can see the whole teaching of the Buddha Dharma really is that. And therefore it becomes very profound. It's not limited only like 7 points of mind training or this or that. I guess it's a way of really understanding the essence of the Buddha's teaching. And the essence of the Buddha's teaching has to do directly with our mind, actually, so to speak. So that's what Lojong meant. In generally, that is what Lojong. So it's not one thing or two thing or 7 or 8, actually. Whether you call it Mahamudra or whether you call it Madhyamika, Abhidharma, these are different names. But they all have wisdom in them, all these teachings. Many different types of wisdom, insight. So we try to extract that insight, and use or benefit from that insight to overcome my own confusion, to overcome my own ignorance, my own mistakes. Simply put, thinking this is me is a mistake, correct? From the Buddhist point of view. I don't exist, yet I always say I am. So it's a mistake. And I, of course, don't think it's a mistake. I say this with ego. I am a Khenpo. I am this, I'm that. So this wisdom then helps us to understand that that's actually, of course, you are allowed to say that. But the two things, saying and feeling. If you, Buddhas also say I'm Buddha, Bodhisattvas also say I'm Buddha, but not with a feeling, just for the sake of communication. But we say this with the feeling, with an ego, So it's a very simple, very small difference, but yet very big difference. Anyway, so this wisdom, this insight, in that we find in the Buddha's teachings are all, really help, to understand the truth, help to understand the reality of the mind, reality of the universe, time and space, actually, right? So that is actually called mind training, so to speak, training or whatever we call it. So it's deep. It goes way, beyond these things. All right, so now coming back to what I was saying early on, then when Atisha came to Tibet, then actually Atisha, gave this very personal teachings to his personal students, like secret advice, so to speak. Of course, he gave many talks in public, but personally, for example, he had many students, some main student like Dom Tenpa is one of his main student, correct? So Dom Tenpa, from what I understand, it's vague in my mind, but he would, on personal level, say this, a line, like, a small sentence to Dom Tenpa. And Dom Tenpa is not to share that with anybody, actually. So it was kept very secret. That's because they knew that not everyone can understand it, not everyone can yet practice it. But he knew Dom Tenpa needed that. And he knew, meaning Atisha knew Dom Tenpa could really, perfect that. And of course, Dom Tenpa did that. And in this way, then Dom Tenpa, of course, to his main student, he had many students and he understood, this is, I can share this personal realization or personal, let's say, practice with this particular student. And he very personally, shared that. So in the very beginning, from what I understand or understood, there were no 7 points. As we know, it became later on. I guess there were many. So it was this very instruction, pith instruction that teachers used to give to very selected students who were capable of perfecting them. And it went on for some time, actually, for some time. Student to student, it's like one-on-one, right? Teacher to student, actually. Teacher to student was. That's why they were very effective, from what I understood, were really, really very effective. Domtempa perfected it, and the Shawaripa, all the other, the Kadampa lineage, as we understand that. Then the Kadampa lineage came about. Atisha, Domtempa, and there are what we call as three brothers, and it's okay, we don't have to go into that. And then, yes. And much later than Chekawa Yeshidorje. Chekawa Yeshidorje, from what I understood, he came across this. Again, there is another mind training called 8 Verses by Langri Thampa. Langri Thampa, actually, 8 Verses. So he came across that. When he came across that, then he was very, very, touched by this one special line, actually, in there. So he wondered that where can I find this teacher? So he went in, looked for this teacher, Langri Thampa. Then he came upon, the student of Langri Thampa, actually, and then he found out that actually Langri Thampa has passed away. So then his student, Shawaripa, I think, yes, he was giving this talk, to a group of students. And Chekawa had to listen to them, but his real intention was to know that, this teaching on the, let's say, Lojong teaching. So one day he got that opportunity, because then he saw that, Sharawa was all by himself, and he was, I guess, going around the stupa. And then Chekawa just ran to him, said, "Would you please sit down for a minute? I have a question to ask." So he said, "Okay, no problem." So then this is when he asked him about this training and all this. Then Sharawa was like, it's not so very easy to really it's not like I can right away give you the whole teaching. If you really want to know how it works, you have to stay with me. So from what I understood, he stayed with him for many years. Anyway, so this is how it slowly came to Chekawa. Then the story actually says that Chekawa then, he sort of collected all these teachings, and then he categorized them into these 7 points, correct? That's how we understand. So it's not Chekawa's own words. These are the words from, we could say, from Atisha and the other teachers, but he collected them. Then there's this story. Then he says that one day Chekawa came upon this person who was sick with leprosy, right? And I find this very interesting, actually. So Chekawa somehow gave him mind training teachings to this person who was sick with leprosy. And he practiced it. He or she, I don't remember, but practiced it. It got cured. Actually, in the Tibetan, story, when it's so-called dharma for leprosy, I think, many people who are sick with leprosy, for them. So in the very beginning, not very beginning, but Chekawa gave this talk to some people who were a little bit sick with leprosy, and they got cured. Then it came to Chekawa Yeshidorje that this teaching should not be kept, secret, because we don't know who or who may not be able to practice it. Because he gave this to those people who were sick with leprosy and they got cured. He didn't know that. But that, I'm saying that is the power of the bodhicitta, of course, bodhicitta so good. And then in this way, then he thought, that we should make this teaching public. So then this teaching, 7 points of mind training, then become more public, so to speak. I'm actually thinking it's same with the Vajrayana empowerments, correct? Vajrayana empowerments, but nobody says this. Empowerment really should be very secret. So, but then now it become very public, all these things. Anyway, it's a different story, but usually it's like that. Okay. Now, Atisha's, we call it says Atisha got this teaching on bodhicitta from 3 different masters, correct? They're very well known, so I'm very sure you all know that. The most well known is, we call Cho Selingpa. Actually, it means the teacher from the land, Golden Island, Sumatra. Nowadays it's called Sumatra, right? It's in Indonesia. Swarna Deepa. I think the actual word before was Swarna Deepa, so selling. Anyways, so Sumatra. And he was a king. And from him, Dharmakirti is his name actually, I think. Yes, Dharmakirti, Chuitava Dharmakirti. But in Tibetan, we always call him Selingpa or Cho Selingpa, the Lord from Golden Island, I guess, or Sumatra. We could simply say Sumatra. Anyways, Cho Selingpa. So anyway, there's a very long story. He meaning Atisha was with him for a very long time, I guess. So he lived in Sumatra. Probably the Sumatra was a very different back in time, but anyway, he did there. From the life story of Atisha, we understand that it says time to time, he would praise his teachers like Atisha, Dharmakirti, Dharmarakshita, and Maitri Yogi. These are other teachers I will tell. He would, praise them, and out of joy, he would cry. He says that in the life story of Atisha, because he says this little mind, they would say, little mind meaning this little bodhicitta that I have is thanks to them, so to speak. So he would, from time to time, out of devotion, out of joy, would say out their names and, out of grateful, of course. Dharma Rakshita, again, same, another very great master who had also, accomplished bodhicitta. You don't find a whole lot of teachings or life story about this, these very great masters, but they were really someone who were masters who very especially focused on loving kindness and compassion on bodhicitta only, so to speak. It's not from the viewpoint of view, okay, at all. From that viewpoint of view, realization point of view, Atisha actually is more learned than any of them. So the combined actually is more learned. But from the bodhicitta point of view, then yes, they were more, more trained or more accomplished. So therefore Atisha did, like for the Dharmarakshita and also Maitreya Yogi. These are the 3, we call Indian master actually, but 3 masters from whom then Atisha got a lot of teachings on the bodhicitta. We say mind training, but on bodhicitta. And then this way it came back to Tibet, from Atisha to Domtaba and all of this. So now, and in Tibet then, not just like only mind training, this Lamrim teaching Actually, it's really Atisha. The Lamrim teaching is also, thanks to Atisha. Every lineage we have Lamrim teaching. Lamrim teaching meaning teaching for gradual path, I guess. Lamche Rinpa, it kind of means order, order of the path. There are order of the path, meaning what you need to do in the beginning, what you need to do in the middle, and how you accomplish. So this is what the Rinpa actually means that. For example, we start with refuge, for example, right? And we start with refuge, but then we also start with renunciation, bodhicitta, then there's a practice. So there are many orders. Rinpa is actually order, meaning it's very important to follow those orders. If you don't follow the order, probably we will not succeed in accomplishing the practice. So to accomplish the practice, we have to follow those orders. If you're doing a Guru Yoga, there are orders also in the Guru Yoga, correct? You have many orders. So you have to follow the orders. It's same thing here when say Lamche Rinpa, the, Lamrim also means, there is a path to the enlightenment, but this path, there are these orders that you really need to go one by one. You finish the first stage, then move on to the second, and then move on to the third. And this way, then you will accomplish. This is the meaning of the Lamrim, okay, actually. So it's huge. Like we have, in our Kaji lineage, the most well-known is Gambupa's, dual ornamental liberation. For that's also very Lamrim. And then in every lineage, we have that. What I'm saying is that all this Lamrim practice, they include bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the heart of the Lamrim practice also. At the same time, then, for example, there's this Dharma is practiced, is practiced according to individuals' capability, correct? Again, thanks to Atisha in his book called Dharma Pradipa, actually, I think. Bodhipatha Pradipa, I'm saying it wrong way. Changchu Lamrim, Changchu Lamdun, Changchu Lamdun. Yes, Bodhipatha Pradipa. Okay. Lamp for the path of enlightenment, probably something like this. In that, also again, Atisha talks about individuals, like 3 individuals or 3 individuals. So that 3 individuals, these are actually necessary in the sense that it's again order. So the Lamrims are based on that, meaning it's not that we have equal capability of practicing the Dharma. We have different capacity in us. So based on our capacity, we need to follow that particular, path. So it's divided into these 3 individuals, so to speak. Actually, it should be 4, but 3 individuals. 1 for the common person, and 2 of them are for the noble beings. Like, for example, for the Hinayana and for the Mahayana, we can say in this short way. And all these, teachings, the Lamrim teaching, the teaching on the 7 points of mind training, especially the 7 points of mind training actually belongs to the, to the individuals belonging to the Mahayana path, correct? To the Mahayana path. So I'm saying many scattered things to give you some idea, about this practice of the bodhicitta, then how this bodhicitta becomes really, source for enlightenment, source for actually all of the path, So that's why I'm trying to give some picture, so to speak. Okay, so how this can be understood. Lamrim teaching is not exactly, because in Lamrim teaching you will find the bodhicitta and all these other teachings. So like Bodhicharya Avatara, for example, is also on Lamrim, but very special one as well. All right, so those are the, let's say, the sort of general, thing about bodhicitta, about lamrim, and about path. So I thought, it will be useful, beneficial for for all of us. The so yes, before today, I think we will not go into the root text itself. So in there is also this teaching on 7 points of mind training by Shamra Mache. He gave it in different places. Actually, I remember he gave it in Virginia also, and probably he gave it in many other centers as well. So it's called Path to Awakening, if I remember correctly. So we have that in the in the Kibi library, bookstore, I should say, in Kibi bookstore. If you would like, you can buy that. That is one, let's say, of the book that I use most of the time as a reference to the to this mind training teachings. And then there are many other in Tibetan and English. There are many. I don't really remember the names. I guess they all are called 7 points of mind training, right? Yes. So other things, for example, like jewel ornament of liberation, also really is very, it's very condensed, but at the same time, it's also, very, very, very helpful, actually, especially, especially with the practice of the Ngondo, especially with the practice of this, mind trainings, is very helpful. So yes, Bodhicharya Avatara and on the other, these are the body, and then jewel ornamental liberation from what we have here are really, they go hand in hand. All these teachings, they go hand in hand, and they help us to have very broad, understanding of the Bodhisattva yana, right? We are trying to understand the Bodhisattva yana, so it has a very broad understanding of the Bodhisattva yana. So these are the books that you could buy. So I think I will now take questions if you like, some questions, and then from tomorrow, then I will teach from the book. We go into the root text. So you're welcome to, ask any questions you may have. It's for the yeah.
Hello, Khenpo. So during the lecture, is it okay?
Yeah.
At one point you said that I think you said, if I was listening carefully, that everything good in the universe comes from, bodhicitta, from compassion and wisdom. But I was wondering, because sort of my understanding, and maybe it's wrong, was that sort of the nature of space has that quality of compassion and wisdom. So it would be more like shining through as opposed to like coming from it. In other words, what would be producing it? What would be producing compassion and wisdom if it wasn't the nature of space itself?
Okay. And what's the space?
It's just what it is.
So I'm asking what it is.
I don't know. How would I know?
No, I'm asking you, okay. Yes, probably the meaning of space is misunderstood, I think it's a translation of what we call as Dharma Dhatu. If I understand it correctly, we call Dharma Dhatu. In Tibetan, we call Chuji Ying. That Dharma Dhatu, from what I understand, is nature of the mind itself. It's not separate from the nature of the mind. So therefore, compassion, kindness, all that is the nature of the mind, right? Not separate from the nature of the mind. So it's same as saying that, compassion, kindness that we experience is something we inherent. It's inherent with our own, unborn nature of the mind. And that unborn nature of the mind has many names: Dharmakaya, Dharmadhatu, space. I think the space is from that point of view.
Okay.
Yep.
So it comes from whatever is there.
Yeah, so it comes from within us. It comes from our own mind, a mind that we have never discovered yet, so to speak. In our language, it will come up. It's called the unborn, machepisem, unborn awareness. This is to say that awareness, this unborn, which we will discuss tomorrow, is independent of the existence. So that's why same as saying emptiness, actually.
So then when we say like generating compassion or generating bodhicitta, would it be more like generating it or just kind of scraping away at whatever delusions are there and then it's just coming from where it is?
Right.
Okay.
That's correct. Meaning we use help of teachings and practice. This teaching, this practice, they don't exactly create the bodhicitta, but they remove away all the obscurations, whatever is hiding that from me, whatever is preventing me from experiencing my own nature of the mind is being removed, is being destroyed. And this way, then I see it directly, I experience it directly, right? That's how it is.
Thank you, Khenpo.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Khenpo, for the teachings.
Sure.
I have a question about idle speech, like not very meaningful speech.
Okay.
Is considered one of the, let's say, negative actions.
Okay.
And
So when you say I don't speech,
idle speech, like not meaningful speech.
okay.
And I was trying to like connect it because sometimes we can also show kindness through just talking with people.
Right.
But often it's not very meaningful.
Okay.
It's just like people talking.
Okay.
And I had this observation, and maybe you can comment on that, like how to combine speaking meaningfully, but also kindly, like not to shut down not meaningful talk.
Right. Okay. Yes, I think those. 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 usually when we say meaningful, then I guess it can mean different things. Meaningful as in, if it helps someone in some ways, it's always meaningful, right? In the sense like inspiring someone, encouraging someone, helping someone to really, have some understanding of the life or all this. So that's the meaningful of it. And then, yes, that is very good in the sense, the thing like be considerate is, kindness, but I also think being considerate is also very, very important actually. Meaning what you said is like sometimes people say a lot of things, but they do not make much sense. Probably in their mind it makes sense. You never know really. They're thinking that it's making a lot of sense, but it's not making a lot of sense. But we listen to them, not because we have to understand something. We don't really have to always understand something, but just be more considerate, and more kind. And that actually is very, very good to do. We should do that. We don't, in honesty is good, but that honesty should also be kind, is what you're saying, and it is true. Meaning, you could be very honest, very direct. Honest doesn't always mean you have to be very, very rough, or that speech-wise, it doesn't mean you have to, use a very harsh speech. Direct, you can be direct, and yet your speech can be also very pleasant. And sometimes people are, direct, and there's nothing wrong, they're saying the right thing, but because the speech they use, the language they use, is probably not, not very, it's not right. So it's right, yes, what they're saying is right, but then the language they're using is probably not right. So we need to learn to, use proper and appropriate, way of conveying your thought, correct? So no, this is actually, speech is very important from the 10 kinds of negative action. Speech is one of them, as we understand. And that is, as a common people like us, we do really need to be most mindful of our speech also, right? Language. So yes, it's true. We need to learn really to speak more, speak more properly, more appropriately, right? That really is very important actually. No matter the motivation behind it. Your motivation can be very kind. But at the same time, then if your speech is proper, then it becomes more meaningful, more helpful. So it is, I think, something that we individually need to, like you said, you observe. That's very good. We really need to observe, our speech. Of course, our thoughts, our speech, and words that we say, we try to find the most proper words for that. This is the very profound, experience of mindfulness, actually, right? Mindfulness. So yes, it's very important to, to train oneself in speech.
Khenpo, thank you for your teachings. I have a question about bodhicitta. about how we can feel it, and is it possible to feel it? And we are like ordinary beings that who would like to gain enlightenment. We are communicating with such high lamas as His Holiness Karmapa, and with another high lamas, and sometimes some of us, or maybe all of us, can feel something like we feel something, and sometimes we are immediately starting maybe not to cry, but we feel like some emotions, and some I can talk about myself that sometimes I feel something like immense compassion. It's like I can't compare it with something, and I'm wondering, is it bodhicitta? Okay. Is it about bodhicitta, and how can we feel this important, not thing, but something like bodhicitta in our daily life, in our communicating with such high lamas? Thank you.
Sure. Yes, okay, so yes, it is really true and 100% possibility that, that we can experience renunciation, also bodhicitta, wisdom, and of course devotion through, blessed or, bodhisattvas and teachers who are very accomplished. There is no doubt about that, and it's very much possible. What it is, I can't exactly say. It depends on that. It could sometimes, when we, let's say, when we are in the presence of high lamas like Karmapa, you experience. Most of the time it is my own devotion to the teacher, to the teaching, all of that. And because of this devotion in me, it generates, sometimes it is renunciation, and sometimes it is, for me it's most of the time really devotion, but devotion also supported by renunciation. Bodhicitta is a little bit difficult to describe. But yes, it is, especially when we are receiving empowerment and others, there is a possibility that we can have the glimpses of that. There are these, meaning Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and the holy places like Bodh Gaya and all these other, they have this ability, or blessing, let's say, given that I have this right seed in me, it can trigger, the seeds of the bodhicitta, seeds of the renunciation. I do need a seed in me, okay? If I don't have any seed, then it's not really possible. So it means that if we experienced bodhicitta, renunciation, that means I have already planted those seeds. And now when I met with this particular lama, this particular, let's say lama or empowerment or teaching, it can be that too. And that becomes condition which then, really in that moment can manifest, can help to manifest that, experience. And we can experience. So these are always possibility, and many a time people do. So yes, it always happens with this. What it is a little bit hard to tell, whether it is bodhicitta. It could be anything really, from the experience of nature of the mind to renunciation to compassion. It could be any of these things, and it could be all of these things. So it's very difficult to kind of draw a line, saying, okay, this is this is a little bit hard to draw that line. But yes, it's of course always very much possible. Yeah, but we need that seed within us. We do have the Buddha nature mind, but on top of Buddha nature mind, when we have accumulation of merit, which suppose that, and then on top of that, when we have these kind of teachings or lamas, when they come together, so it's like cause, condition, everything comes together, of course they will manifest, yeah? Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask, because when one is tries to be aware, and there are these feelings, and one can be aware of it. I remember the saying. I think, if I remember.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. That nothing repeats like exactly this saying. I remember. So when I'm trying to be aware and try to be aware of the emotions, of thoughts, of it feels really same sometimes that one refers to a feeling. Oh, I felt that before. Then it can also maybe lead to grabbing or attachment. So I wanted to ask, how is the meaning of that nothing repeats, or that this kind of emotion that we feel? Mm-hmm. How is the difference?
Okay. Well, that's very deep, my friend. You had a very deep realization. That's very, interesting. I'm not sure if I can, exactly answer that, but I do agree that, the exactly same feeling will be not repeated because it's gone. This is true. But what the word is, we call the mind stream, the continuity, correct? So let's say one first moment, second moment, as an example, this first moment, second moment, third moment. This first moment, second moment are not same, right? Because first is gone, then it's not there, but the second moment. Whatever you experience in the first moment is continued by the second moment. But in the second moment, it won't be exactly the same, but yet same, because it's the continuity of your own experience. So this is from the meaning, it's actually it's very deep, because that's how we will understand the, the layers of layers of the thoughts, meaning each moment is a layer. First layer, second layer, third layer. There's layers and layers and layers. Each layer, the first layer you experienced, and in the second which you experienced, seemingly, you have same experience, seemingly. But because these two layers are not the same, at the same time, then it's not it's not absolutely the same. So this is why similarities are found, and we mistake those similarities, and think they are the one, correct? So like many a times with the example is river. River is flowing. So I think it's the same river that I saw like yesterday or day before, a year ago. But of course, that river is gone. The reason I think it's the same river is because of the color and the shape. So I think, oh, it's that river. But I do not mean to say that it's the same river from that point of view. We all know this. So likewise, our feelings and emotions is like this flow of the river that has that similarity, shape, color-wise. But at the same time, it's actually not 100% exactly the same. We can give many examples from joy point of view. Joy you experience today and tomorrow. Both are joy, you know. Or anger-wise, you experience anger now or an hour later. We categorize both as an anger. Seems this way. But actually, they are not same from that point of view. You know, yesterday's anger, today's anger, two different angers, so to speak. Or love I feel today and tomorrow are two love. But in our mind, we have this, let's say, notion, this perception, you know, thinking because of the name probably, you know, so thinking that these two are exactly the same. So that's called misconception, correct? It's called misconception, actually, from the Buddhist point of view. So, yes, so then, like in the meditation, from what I remember, it says when we look into these meditation experience, you know, then these experiences that one go through moment by moment, each of these experience has their own very unique quality, actually, so to speak. So you are right by saying that they're not same, you know, because they do have their own very unique quality. But the reason we feel it's same is because of the misconception, actually, so to say, that it's the same thing. So that, which means we still have we still need to, you know, experience, you know, much deeper realization, much deeper meditation experience to cut through that. We still need to cut through all this, you know, other misconception that we have. There are, within the misconception, there are also subtlety. You understand subtlety? There's subtlety, actually. Like in our thought, there are subtleties. This is what we are talking about that. Experience has subtlety in that. We are not able to distinguish the subtleties, so we take everything as oneness. And we think, okay, this is one. But in reality, we failed to recognize these different, let's say, characteristics in this different subtlety, so to speak. So this is, you know, how then the pragyana, the transcendental wisdom, the vipassana wisdom kicks in. When one experiences this vipassana meditation, this is when we will have an absolute realization of every single characteristics of these layers. So then there will be no at all, you know, misconception at all. But until that time, we still will feel it. So in short, it means until the time again the vipassana meditation experience, we still will have that misconception thinking, you know, or taking these experiences as same experience. But it's very deep, actually. All right, so I think we will now stop, and so tomorrow then I will go through the points. Okay. Sunam dia tamche zikpa nye tonai nye pe danaya pamche. Che gaya na che balaya tukpa ye sebe tsole dowa dolvare shoy. Gewan diye kiwo kun sunam yeshe tsoto. Sunam yeshe lechung wa tamba kunye tobare shoy. Minjura lombo kuye tashi sho, yen la ye tukcho sungke tashi sho. Tadala time tukche tashi sho, gyalve kusong tukche tashi sho. Thank you.
Dear friends, so tiny clarification about the list and about the lunch today. So there is a kind request for all the Saojang practitioners, so everyone